In the history of American television, few names bring about as much nostalgia as Susan Dey. Best remembered as Laurie Partridge in the Partridge Family, Day's image is forever tied to the golden age of family sitcoms in the 1970s. She captivated audiences with her natural beauty, girl-next-door charm, and calm presence, becoming one of the most beloved teen stars of her generation. But behind the fame, Day's journey reflected the complexities of growing up in front of the cameras, navigating an industry that often demanded more from young actresses than they were prepared to give. Her story is not one of scandal, but of resilience, dignity, and a determination to forge her own path away from the spotlight's constant demands. Rising to fame at 17, Susan Dey's entry into Hollywood was unlike that of many of her peers. With no prior acting experience, she was cast at just 17 years old as Laurie Partridge, the sensible and thoughtful daughter in the Partridge Family. The show debuted in 1970 and became an instant cultural phenomenon. Audiences fell in love not only with the catchy tunes and family-friendly antics, but also with the poised young actress who played Laurie. Day's soft-spoken intelligence, calm demeanor, and fresh-faced beauty made her instantly relatable, especially to teenage viewers who saw her as both a role model and a peer. Practically overnight, Susan went from an ordinary teenager to a household name, her face appearing on lunchboxes, posters, and magazine covers. The burden of the spotlight fame arrived swiftly, but so did its challenges. The 1970s was a decade when youth culture was celebrated, yet it was also a time when the media relentlessly scrutinized young stars. For Susan Dey, this meant constant attention to her appearance, personality, and choices. One moment often referenced from early in her career came during a promotional photo shoot for the Partridge Family. Posed in a summery outfit, Day looked every bit the image of youthful innocence. Yet the media latched onto the photos, exaggerating their significance and creating unnecessary buzz. By today's standards, the images were modest and appropriate, but in the cultural climate of the time, they became fodder for headlines. It was less about what Susan showed off physically and more about how fame itself exposed her to expectations she had never asked to fulfill. Navigating fame with class. Despite the media's tendency to sensationalize, Susan handled her new reality with remarkable grace. She resisted the temptations of the Hollywood party scene that ensnared so many of her contemporaries. Instead, she focused on her craft and maintained a private, grounded life. While she enjoyed her success, she also recognized the challenges of being constantly in the public eye. In later interviews, Day would admit that growing up on television was overwhelming and often uncomfortable. Yet she never let these struggles define her publicly. She embodied dignity, staying true to herself and refusing to allow Hollywood's pressures to dictate her personal choices. A reluctant teen idol. Part of Susan's lasting mystique lies in her reluctance to fully embrace the role of teen idol. While her co-star David Cassidy leaned into his status as a heartthrob, Day quietly distanced herself from such labels. For her, acting was not about fame or adoration, it was about performing. This approach gave her an air of authenticity that fans admired. Unlike many young stars, she did not exploit her popularity, but instead sought balance and perspective. Her natural reserve became part of her appeal, making her stand out in an era defined by celebrity culture. Breaking away from Laurie Partridge. When the Partridge Family ended in 1974, Susan Dey faced the same challenge that confronts many actors who play iconic roles: how to break away from being typecast. For years, audiences struggled to see her as anyone other than Laurie Partridge. Yet Susan was determined to prove herself as more than just a sitcom star. She took on a range of roles in television and film, from dramas to comedies, demonstrating versatility that often surprised critics. Though it took time, her persistence paid off when she landed one of the most defining roles of her career in the 1980s. Grace Van Owen and critical acclaim. In 1986, Susan Dey joined the cast of L.A. Law as District Attorney Grace Van Owen. The role marked a turning point in her career, offering her the opportunity to embody a character far removed from her teenage sitcom days. Grace was intelligent, confident, and ambitious, a modern woman navigating the complexities of law and power in Los Angeles. Dey's performance earned her critical acclaim, including a Golden Globe Award and multiple Emmy nominations. For many, her success on L.A. Law proved what she had always known, that she was a serious actress capable of far more than her early fame suggested. A life lived privately. Throughout her career, Susan Dey remained remarkably private. Unlike many celebrities of her stature, she rarely granted interviews and avoided the Hollywood social scene. This privacy was not born out of arrogance, but out of a desire to maintain balance in her life. Even at the height of her fame, she resisted attempts to lure her into reunions or nostalgic projects. Notably, she declined opportunities to participate in Partridge family reunions, explaining that she wanted to distance herself from the polished, overly sentimental image of her youth. This decision only deepened her aura of dignity, showing that she prioritized authenticity over nostalgia. Beyond fame, Susan's strength. Susan's story is as much about what she chose not to do as what she did. By stepping away from the spotlight when it no longer served her, she demonstrated quiet strength. She resisted the temptation to cling to fame, instead focusing on her family, health, and personal fulfillment. In an industry that often rewards the loudest voices and biggest personalities, Susan proved that there is power in restraint. She showed that it is possible to survive the spotlight without sacrificing one's sense of self. A role model for resilience. Looking back, Susan Dey represents more than just a star of television's past. She is a role model for resilience in an industry known for its pressures. Her career is a reminder that fame does not always equate to fulfillment, and that dignity often lies in choosing when to step away. For fans who grew up watching her as Lori Partridge or admired her work as Grace Van Owen, she remains a figure of admiration, not because she embraced the spotlight, but because she endured it with grace. The legacy of Lori Partridge. For many fans, Susan Dey will always be Lori Partridge, the thoughtful, responsible daughter who anchored the Partridge family. Yet even within that role, there was something more. What viewers saw wasn't just a character on a screen, but a young woman navigating her own journey in real time. Lori Partridge may have been fictional, but Susan's sincerity made her feel real. Decades later, fans still recall the comfort and joy that the show brought, and Dey's portrayal remains a key part of that legacy. Nostalgia meets reality. Today, when fans revisit the Partridge family or recall their favorite moments of Susan Dey's career, they do so with a sense of nostalgia. But it's important to remember the reality behind the image. For Susan, fame arrived without preparation and placed her under scrutiny she never sought. And yet, she navigated it with dignity, refusing to allow a single photo, headline, or expectation to define her. When people say she showed off more than she wanted, it is not about revealing too much. It is about how fame itself revealed her to a world she hadn't asked to face so young. Susan Dey's lasting influence. Even though she has stepped back from the spotlight in recent years, Susan Dey's influence remains. Her performances continue to inspire admiration. Her career serves as a model of reinvention, and her resilience offers lessons for anyone navigating pressure or public expectations. For fans, she represents an era of television defined by simplicity and heart, but also a reminder of the very human challenges behind the screen. Her life and career are proof that true success is not about constant visibility, but about living authentically and with purpose. Conclusion: surviving the spotlight. With dignity. Susan Dey's journey is one of quiet strength in an industry that often rewards spectacle. From her breakout role in the Partridge family to her award-winning turn in L.A. Law, she has shown remarkable range as an actress. Yet her greatest achievement may be how she handled the spotlight itself, refusing to let fame consume her, choosing privacy over constant exposure, and carrying herself with dignity through decades of scrutiny. For those who grew up watching her, she is not defined by a photo, a headline, or even a single role. She is remembered for her grace, her resilience, and her ability to remind us all that sometimes the greatest treasure in Hollywood is authenticity.